Okay, welcome to the Piglet handover video. Let's start with the control panel here. Now, to get any lighting in the van, any heating or hot water, and indeed any water flowing at all, you're going to need to turn on the control panel using this power button here. Now let's look at lighting first. Once you've turned that on, this switch here will turn on and off the lighting in the main part of the van at the front, and this switch here, that will turn on and off the rear lights, the back of the van. And there's also a little kitchen light above the hob and sink here, which is operated by pushing a button on the end. At the back of the van, above the sofa or the bed, you'll find these little reading lights which are operated by a switch of their own on the side. Now, when you go to bed at night, you're going to want these two reading lights to receive power. There's a little USB next to this one as well, by the way. And to do that, you're going to need to leave the control panel on. So at night time, what you do is you leave the power on here, turn off that button which turns off the lights at the back of the van, turn off this switch which turns off the main lights at the front, and turn off your little kitchen light here. And then you'll find at the back of the van your reading lights are still on and everything else is off. So you just turn those off manually when you go to sleep, and you can leave the control panel on overnight. There's also an outside light, so if you're outside want a bit of a glow, the switch here will turn on this small strip light. So also on the control panel is the water pump, which is this tap symbol down here. To get water flow to the kitchen sink, to the bathroom basin, the shower, and indeed the toilet flush, you're going to need that water pump on. And all it does, it pumps fresh water out from the tank underneath, down through your appliances, through the plug holes, and the wastewater goes down into a separate tank called grey water tank, which we'll come on to when we go outside to show you how to fill up the fresh tank and empty the grey tank. So when you are finished with water flow, make sure you turn it off, otherwise it just runs continuously, and obviously at night that needs to be turned off as well. The button's on the right hand side, so this top right one turns on a little green light in the button, but otherwise it doesn't do anything at all. Very amusing. The next one down with the 3 bars, that's your levels button. That will tell you your water levels and also your power levels. So at the moment we can see that the fresh tank is 75% full and the grey tank or waste is empty. Push that button again, it cycles around various other readings, some of which aren't terribly useful. This one is to select what battery you want to operate everything from. We'll leave that on the leisure battery. That's a separate battery in the back of the van which operates all of your systems. We don't want to operate those from the engine battery, or we might run it down. So that's just an emergency scenario where you can switch power to the to run off the engine battery instead. Push it again. This is just to change the clock time. It just tells you what the control panel is. This is more useful. This is telling you the voltage of the leisure battery. That's saying poor at the moment because the vehicle's been standing inside for a bit. There is a solar panel on this vehicle, so that will charge up that leisure battery if there's daylight, and also when you're driving that will power up, charge up the leisure battery. Push it again and it tells you the voltage of the vehicle battery, and that's it. When you leave the van, you need to turn the control panel off to make sure your leisure battery isn't being drained, and that's just done like this. Now that won't turn off your fridge, which we'll come on to later, but everything else will be switched off. While we're here, just to the right of the control panel, there's a little mini torch for you. To the left of the control panel is the heating and hot water control. And to get power to that, we've got to turn the power on at the control panel, and it then gives you a little wave just to let you know that it's working. The one on the left is the heating, and the one on the right is the hot water. So let's start off with the heating. So to select the temperature you want, you just push the plus button. There's no Celsius readout or anything, you just push plus and minus as you need it. And you can run this off electric hookup or gas. So if you're not hooked up, you're going to push the gas symbol, and that will operate it from the gas. That will turn orange in a minute to indicate that it's heating up, and when it's reached your target temperature it will turn back to blue. Now if you've got electric hookup, use that instead to save your gas. So we'll turn the gas off, and that's this button here. Comes up with a lightning symbol to indicate that it's working on electric, and turns orange to indicate that it's heating up. The two blue lights above it are just to indicate how much power it's receiving from the hookup, so nothing of interest there particularly. So the hot water works in a very similar way, except it just has three settings: off, warm and hot. So this is off, or frost protect setting we've got here now. If I push the plus button, then you'll see this, it's actually a leaf symbol indicating, that indicates warm. Now for most people in the shower, that's warm enough. So that's the setting you'll generally use. Push plus again if you want to go to the hot setting. And what will happen is these lights will gradually build up until they reach your target setting. So until they reach either your warm light there or your hot light. So once they reach that, that's how you know that the water is then warm enough and you're ready to have your shower. Underneath is exactly the same, so you can work it either off gas, or if you've got a hookup, use that instead and push that. A couple of things to note on this. First of all, that if you want hot water in a hurry, and works the same for the heating, and you've got a hookup, you can actually operate it off both gas and electric at the same time. Gas is quicker. So what you then do is you say, okay, I want gas and hookup. Once it's reached your target temperature, turn the gas off to save gas, and it'll just keep it topped up on electric only. The other thing to say is that whilst I've said that warm is usually enough for most people, that's this one. If you're having 2 showers in a row, your showers will last longer if you set to hot. That's because it's a tank. So if the water in the tank is hotter, you'll turn the mixer down a bit, which means your showers will last longer. To turn it off, just push minus until you come back down to the frost protect setting. When you've turned the boiler off on either heating or hot water, you will hear it continuing to operate for a little while. This whooshing noise you might hear in the background is just the boiler, and it's just cooling itself down, so perfectly normal. Let's have a look at the kitchen area now. So the tap just operates by pulling this upwards. Hot is that way, cold is that way, and of course the water pump needs to be on for that to work. There are 2 gas rings, and you'll see on the knob there that there's a dot that indicates that this is off. You see the little notch in the stainless steel above it. So if you turn this that way, then it will select the gas, and you can adjust the strength of the flame to smaller like that. So pushing the knob will release the gas, and you then need to use the supplied sparker to operate it, because the push button sparker here really isn't very good. So push the button down to release the gas, and then use your sparker, and keep your button pressed down for a few seconds, and then you can let go and operate it as you need to. There's a small gas oven, and this has a grill as well. So to operate it, you push the button in towards grill, and then push it in to release the gas, and use the sparker button here until you hear it catch. Then you let go of the sparker, keep the button held in for a few seconds just like the hob, and then let go, and then you'll find that the grill is working. And there's a grill pan there, so you can put on bacon, toast, things like that. And the oven works the opposite direction, so back to 0, around to here to maximum gas, push in to release the gas, push the sparker button. When you hear it light, let go of the sparker, but keep the main button held in again for a few seconds, and that will operate the main oven underneath here. You can't actually see the flame. And then of course when you're done, make sure it's turned to off, and you'll hear it cut off. On the end of the kitchen unit there's a worktop extension. It just flips up like that to give you some extra space, and then underneath, to fold it, you need to just pull down these 2 arms manually. It folds back into place. Underneath that's the fire extinguisher and blanket. There's a cabinet above the hob here. All of these, what you do to open it is you pull it backwards towards you. So you can just put your fingers behind it and pull the catch. This cupboard's got your washing up gear in it. Tea towels, kitchen towel. Underneath the sink there's a drawer. You open that out and we've got all of your cutlery, corkscrew and all those sorts of things, and your sparker in there as well, sharp knives. To lock these drawers you just push that button inwards. Open the one next to it. There's a tool cupboard there. Just got a collapsible washing up bowl and a chopping board in it. And then this one underneath the cutlery drawer. It's got all your pots and pans. There's a cafetiere in there which you can use for doing tea and coffee, frying pans, lids, etc. And then finally the cupboard underneath the oven. Open that. You'll find a dustpan and brush in there and a bit more storage. This is also where the water pump is at the back. If you're hooked up, then this 3-pin socket just above the sink area, that will work, and you can plug in any normal 3-pin appliance like a hairdryer or a toaster in there. If you don't have hookup, it doesn't do anything. And there's another 3-pin socket on the end of the kitchen unit here as well. Phones can be charged using the USB points in the front while you're driving. They won't work when the engine is off, but there's a USB point above the rear seat and another one at the back, as you saw before. Now these will operate off the 12-volt battery, so they will work as long as you leave your control panel on. The fridge is opened by pushing this button here on the right hand side. Handy little fridge, and then there's a freezer section inside with an ice tray in there as well. Now this fridge will operate from the engine when you're driving. It'll operate from hookup if you've got it on your campsite, and if you haven't, it'll operate on gas. So this is currently in the off position. If you get to a site and you've got hookup, just turn to hookup. When you set off and you're driving somewhere, don't forget to turn it to driving to keep the fridge running. Now if you do forget to do that, it will still stay cold for quite a long time. It's quite efficient. If you get to a campsite and you don't have a hookup, you can run it from gas by turning to this, and there is a starting process to get it working on gas. This little gauge tells you if the fridge is operating on gas, so when the orange needle's in the white zone, it isn't on gas. To start it, the temperature gauge is the gas release, so you push it in and that releases the gas, then you use the sparker button to ignite it. So push in, ignite, and you probably can't hear that, but I can hear that the gas is ignited. Keep this pressed in for a little while and you'll see the orange needle moving into the green. Once it gets firmly into the green, you can let go of the gas, and now we're operating on gas. Now when you drive off, don't forget to turn it back from gas to driving, and that will automatically shut off the gas. Bathroom has a light switch on the outside, and in here you'll find a cassette toilet, a shower and a basin. The basin just flips out of the wall here, so you just push there, down it drops, and you pull the tap out and you turn it on that way. Hot is that way, cold is that way. Turn it off, fold it away, and when you tip the basin up, the wastewater will flow down the back. There's also a cupboard in here, a mirror cupboard. To open that, push sharply at the bottom here, and inside you've got storage for your bathroom stuff. To use the shower, you need to push that outwards. That releases the water flow, and then you've got your temperature control here, hot that way, cold that way. Now even though the water pump is on at the moment, you'll see there's no water flowing, and that's because it's a trigger shower. So there's a trigger on the back there. When you push that, water will flow. The idea is to save water. So you wash sort of like you wash a dog, really. You get inside, you wet yourself completely down with the trigger here, then you lather up, and when you've finished you use this again to rinse off. So that will save you a great deal of water. If you try and run it continuously with your thumb on the button, apart from being difficult, you'll run out of water in about 15 minutes from a full tank. The toilet cassette will swivel so you can get comfortable, so you just move it as you need to. It doesn't have a lock position. Then open the lid, and in the bottom here you'll see that there is a valve which is currently closed. Must always be closed when you're not using it. To open it, push this lever backwards, the valve opens. When you're done, you can put toilet paper down here. That's in this canister next to the toilet, but you can't put wipes down. So to clean the bowl, use wipes, and they need to come out into the bin. There is a flush on this as well, so as long as the water pump is on, pushing this blue button here will flush some fresh water around the loo. Then when you're finished, don't forget to close the valve again by pulling it this way. Close down the lid. On the side there is an indicator that shows how full the cassette is, so all green means that it's empty. That'll gradually build up as it fills. When it gets to about 2/3 red, that's the time to empty it, probably beforehand, particularly in hot weather. All the windows open, and you'll see there's a little button on these catches. That's a lock, so it won't open unless you push that button. So push it in, turn the handle through 90 degrees. Some of them don't have a lock on. And then you can push the window out and just tighten off this flywheel here to hold it in place. There's a flywheel on each side. There is a ventilation position, so if you close the window so that it engages in this little notch here, there's a small gap here, but the window remains locked for security. And to close, of course, it's a case of pulling it all the way in and turning them all till they click. Each window has a blackout blind that pulls up from below and an inset blind that comes down from above. Both of these back windows in the rear doors work the same way, so you've got lots of ventilation. This one works the same way, but it's just to say with this one you need to make sure that the side door isn't opened while the window is open, because it will damage it. It overlaps, so usually I just leave this one closed for safety. In the back there's also a roof window. To open that, push this button here so the bar drops down over it, and then you slide it along in this track so you can have it fully open like that, or you've got a middle position there, or you've got a narrow position there. To close it, just push it all the way back beyond the button. And you've also of course got a blackout blind and an inset blind in this as well. To swivel the front seats, first of all fold up the armrests, and then on the side of the seat you'll see a little lever here, and if you pull that it releases the swivel mechanism and allows the chair to turn. Now if you do find that it hits the side of the van, like the door or the steering wheel as you go around, then use the back front bar, which slides the seat forwards and backwards, to adjust it as needed so that you can then clear the steering wheel and complete the turn. Once your seats are swiveled, you can extend the leaf on the table. You'll see underneath here there is a black knob. You pull that down, that releases the swivel and allows you to then bring the leaf around like this. It stops at this position, but you can pull the knob again and turn it so that it reaches further over towards the passenger seat. And there it is in the extended position, and to fold it, same thing, it will lock again, and just use the black knob to release that and stow it away. These armrests can come down, and you'll see a flywheel on here which will adjust the height to which they come. When you rotate the seats back to the front position, just make sure that they engage with a good clunk like that, then you know they're locked in place facing forwards. We supply the van with a full tank of diesel. Please bring it back full as well. Left hand stalk is the lights. They're not automatic, so to turn them on just rotate to there and we can see the side light symbol coming on the dashboard now. To go to main beam, pull it all the way towards you, and to go back to dip, all the way towards you again. Pulling it halfway will just flash somebody. And this is also the indicator stalk. Right hand stalk is the wipers, and that's up is a flick wipe, and then down for on through the various different settings. Pull it towards you for screen wash. The stalk for the cruise control is underneath the light stalk, and it's currently on 0, which means off, and what you want to do is rotate it to on, and it says in the dashboard cruise control on. And when you're going at the speed you want to hold, push the lever upwards and that will hold it. To cancel or resume, it's the button on the end, and to turn it off, back to 0. This one is the speed limiter, works the same way, down and then push up at the speed you want to limit to. Gearbox is a 6-speed manual. To go into reverse you need to pull up this sheath here and you'll hear the parking sensors beep to acknowledge they're working. It's very important, particularly on Fiats, not to ride the clutch, so when you're driving, please keep your foot away from the clutch. They are prone to wearing out. Heating and ventilation, there's your fan speed here, your temperature there, air conditioning button. This one is to adjust where you want the air blowing to, see the white notch, and underneath there, that's just to switch to recirculation mode. Beneath that, the hazard warning light and the lock button. So when you go to sleep at night, you want to push that button and that will lock all the doors, including the side door and the back door. There's a DAB digital radio there which will connect to your phone via Bluetooth as well, and above that is a phone holder. This is a bit curious the way it works, but what you do is you pull up this tab quite hard at the back. On the side there's a little lever that you pull out which unlocks those two bits. You put your phone in here and then lock, and it will hold the phone in place for you. To remove the phone, pull the lock out, take your phone out, push those down, fold the lock in, and then slam it back in place. And down next to the cup holders there's a spirit level. If you're parked on unlevel ground overnight, there are levelling blocks, essentially big ramps in the back under the sofa. One of you should be outside watching where you're driving, and you might want to prop up both front tyres, or perhaps just the front left or both left, depending on what you need. And this spirit level will tell the driver roughly when you're level. The main reason for that, apart from sleeping comfort, is that the fridge needs to be roughly level to work properly. Rear fog lamps are down here on the right hand side, this button here. And there's a reversing camera fitted to this vehicle. So this is looking directly down at the back of the van. As you're reversing, any objects that get to the yellow, that's when you want to stop. However, it has a second camera as well, and if you push this V1, V2 button at the bottom right, it will toggle between the two cameras. So this one is looking directly outwards as if you had a rear view mirror. So I always keep that on permanently when I'm driving so I can see what's happening behind me. When you want to switch to reversing camera, it won't do it automatically when you go into reverse. You've got to push the V1, V2 button there. If the camera is annoying you, you can turn it off completely down here. But if it's simply too bright, I would recommend adjusting the brightness, and you do that by pushing the M button here, and a brightness display comes up, and you can adjust it using the plus and minus buttons as you need. The vehicle dimensions and payload, and also my phone number and the breakdown phone number, are on this label in the corner of the windscreen. Now, there are blinds fitted in all the front windows. To operate the main windscreen one, you just need to lift the camera off. It just sits on the edge there, and fold it down. And then you pull the blind up, making sure it clears the edge of the phone holder there. And just manually pull it up to the top. The side window blinds work by pulling this tab back and just gently raising, making sure that they pass behind the housing there. And then at the top they clip in like that. Before we start using the TV, we need to put the antenna up, and that's in the cupboard behind it here above the fridge, and it's this thing here. And all you do is you push it up like that and tighten off the wing nut to hold it in place. Now, if you're still finding that you're not getting channels, you can rotate the antenna using this handle and see if that helps. Obviously, when we finish using the television, we need to retract the antenna. You just undo that wing nut and then pull this back down again. The TV works just like a normal domestic one in most ways, except that you've got to retune it every time you move. So the remote control is up here in the cabinet above the television, and you can just put it away from the wall like that and hinge it towards you. We've got a red standby light on there, which is meaning the control panel is on. And then we need to push the power button here to take it out of standby and wake it up. Now, the retuning process is that first of all you need to push this menu button here. That comes up with a screen here, and then you push the down arrow button here to go to auto tuning, then push OK. Then it comes up with the countries. Now if you push the down button it'll go straight to UK, but otherwise you can select the country you're in using the rotary bezel there, and then push OK when you're on the country you want, and off it goes. And in 5 minutes or so it'll leave you on BBC One, usually in the UK. After that, all the other controls are just as you'd expect from a normal domestic TV. In the cupboard above the fridge you'll find a table leg and a tabletop, and if you haven't got the bed made up you can put a table in the back, flip out this cap, put the leg in there, and the top just goes over the leg in that hole there. You've got a nice place to sit and have a coffee at the back. So we're going to need the support struts first of all. These are under the left hand cushion just here. The struts go into the lugs on both sides, you can see here. You'll need to lift the seat on both sides to drop the strut in from above. So now those are both in place, we can slide out the shelf from underneath the cushion here. Comes across, and the same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to move the cushions in place. First of all, pull this base one out, and the back one goes in across the rear like that. Now you can put these cushions like this, but you'll see that there's a bulge across the front surface. I find that a bit uncomfortable, so what I do is I turn this cushion around, both the base cushions, like that, so that you've got a flat surface through the middle. So there's the bed made up, ready for your double mattress cover, which we provide. You need to bring a double sheet, fitted one works best. And most people leave the bed made up during the day just because of the hassle of undoing it all, and also the advantage of that is you get the storage underneath. But of course if you want to have that sofa and a table set up at the back, you'll need to unmake all of this, and there is space under the cushion by the table and the front seats under the double bench there, where you can put your duvet and pillows out of the way. To lock the van, push this button. The second press will set the alarm. To unlock, the top button will just unlock the cab doors, just the front two doors. The bottom one here will unlock the side door and the rear doors. To fill up with diesel, it's this flap by the passenger door. Just open that up, and then you use the engine key to open the filler. And the blue one there, that's AdBlue. That'll be full when you collect it, so you won't need to get any more. The black key opens the water filler. Turn anti-clockwise through 90 degrees and then twist off. The water filling hose is in this cupboard under the left hand cushion, so even if the bed's made up you can access it through the back here. Your campsite supply tap should look like that, with a hose lock adapter on it, and your pipe just clicks in there. And just in case that tap adapter is missing, there is one provided, so you've got a spare one here which screws onto the tap first. This is just an adapter for an old 1/4 inch pipe. The other end, the open end, just goes straight in like this. You need to fish around a little bit potentially until you find the opening, so if it stops sort of here you're missing it. You need to angle the pipe until it goes in, and you'll feel it start to grip the pipe on its own. When the tank is full, the water will flow out through 2 drain valves underneath. When you're coiling the pipe back up again, there will be quite a lot of water in it, so just take your time. It requires a bit of patience to gradually coil it up, and as you go, any water left in will flow out of the end of the pipe. Now you should fill up with fresh water at every opportunity, and also empty your grey tank, even more regularly if anything, because stagnant grey water sitting in the tank will start to cause a smell back up through the shower. So these are your drain valves. Don't touch the blue one because that will drain your fresh tank. So to drain it, all you do is you twist this tap 180 degrees anti-clockwise, and all the wastewater will drain out through that tap there. Once it's empty, close it up again. Now where do you empty this water? Well, on big sites there'll be drive over grates. Drive the van over, open the tap up, wait for it to empty, and then drive off again. Small sites will tell you to empty the water where your van is sitting, in which case I would recommend just having this tap open for the duration of your stay, so that as you're using the shower and the basins the water is just flowing straight through, rather than dumping a lot of literage of water in one go, which might cause a bit of a mud problem. Your hookup cable is under the left hand sofa. Now the end that goes into the van is the one with the cap here. So we just open up the flap and you'll see that above the socket there's a slot there, and that's where this lid goes in. There's also a notch at the bottom here, and that engages into the slot there. So pull the cover back, find the notch, push firmly, and it locks into place. And your campsite supply will be under a rain cover of some sort, of course, and the end that goes in this one is the one without a cover. You can see the same notch on there that engages at the bottom. So you just push that in, and there'll be some sort of switch, probably more like an RCD type switch, that you push upwards to turn the supply on. So how do you know the hookup is working? There isn't any really obvious way, but the best way to do it is to turn on the control panel. Your heating and hot water display wakes up, and then if you push the hookup setting on either of them, if that goes blue, then it's detected electricity and it's working. Now that you've hooked up, of course, don't forget to turn the fridge to the hookup position so it's running on electricity. If you're not receiving electricity and you've plugged it in, turned it on, everything seems to be okay outside, then the place to check is under this right hand sofa. Now on this supply unit, those two lights, the green and the orange, should both be lit when you're hooked up. If they're not, then it's just a case of pushing the button to turn it back on again. If that still doesn't work, then we want to be checking the charger fuse here at the bottom right, the blue one there, and see if that needs replacing, and also check that all of your RCDs are up. Failing all of that, speak to the campsite and see if the supply is working. In particular, if you're sharing a supply with a neighbouring van, ask them if theirs is working. When you're ready to unhook, you want to push down this blue lever at the top left and simultaneously pull the socket, and then just bang the cover back into place. To open the toilet cassette door, it's the black key on your ring, and then what you do is you push that button and push that button and grab the edge of the door with your fingers. It's easier with two hands, and the door will swing open. And just to mention, with this lock, when it's locked you can't push this button in, so that's how you know that it's locked. At the bottom you'll see a blue catch, and you pull that up to clear that tab, and then you can pull the cassette out. Now if you get to about here and it's stuck, it won't come any further. It's because the valve inside the toilet bowl is open. So in that case, push it back in, go into the bathroom, close the valve, and then you'll be able to pull the cassette out like that. There's a handle on top. Now we want to carry this cassette across to the black waste disposal point at the campsite, probably by the toilet block, and you can carry it using this handle on the end. But if that is quite heavy, there is also a grab handle here, and that locks into place. I'll use my foot since I only have one hand, and then you can drag it across to the black waste point using that handle. It's a little bit easier if it's heavy. So when you get to the black waste disposal point, you want to open this up and take the cap off the end, put that somewhere safe so don't lose it, and then pour the contents out through that corner. So under this edge there's a lip there you can put your hands in. Put your other hand on this handle here, and as you're pouring out through the corner, push that button. That's a vacuum breaker, lets a bit of air in, make sure everything flows out of this corner smoothly. Now once you've done that and it's empty, you're going to put a bit of water in there just to rinse it out, clean it out a bit more. And to get water in, pull this cover back and then turn that. That's the valve we saw from inside. And put a couple of pints of water in there, close up again, put the cap back on again, and give it a bit of a swirl around, and then once again empty out through the corner. Do that a couple of times with some water just to clean it out, and then we can take it back to the van.
In the cupboard above the fridge you'll find your toilet chemicals, so that's a bottle of chemicals there and a bottle of water. There's also some gloves, so if you're doing this for real you should be wearing gloves of course. And what we put in is one beaker, just one of those, of the blue chemicals and 3 bottles of water, and there is a reminder on the inside of the cassette door of that mixture. And we just put it in the same way. We put the water in, open it up there. 1 beaker and 3 bottles go in there. Now this blue chemical is quite viscous, so it sticks to the edge of the beaker. So when you put your first bottle in, I tend to sort of just rinse it out a bit. You can use your finger since you'll be wearing gloves to do that. So that mixture goes in here, and then we close up the valve again, cover back on, make sure the cap's on tight, rotate the cap back so it's flat like that. And now we can just take the cassette and put it back into the hole like that. It clicks in place as this blue catch engages. There's your little reminder about the mixture. And then just close up the door and use your black key to lock. Now, to tell how much gas you've got, it's this little gauge just below the steering wheel. You need to have the engine running for this to work, and it will gradually build up the green lights and show you how full the tank is. And to fill up with the gas, you open the cover like this, no key required, and the LPG pump slots in there, and there's a lever which turns through 90 degrees to lock it in place. There will be full instructions on the pump. And on the pump there'll be a black button, and you push that black button, keep it pushed in until the gas stops flowing, then release the handle. There'll be a blowback of cold gas, which is quite loud, can be a bit of a surprise, but there's a cover there to prevent it from damaging your hand. And it'll cost no more than £7 or £8 to fill the tank even from completely empty. And then when you're done, just turn this back on again. So where do you get LPG? You need to download an app called My LPG EU. My LPG EU, and that'll show you all the stations throughout Europe which sell LPG, complete with phone numbers, so you can ring the station and make sure they've actually got some before you go over there if you're going far out of your way. If you're on unlevel ground where you're staying overnight, you can use the levelling blocks. Now these you just basically drive up to one of these 3 levels, and you might do this on just one front wheel if you're on a dip. You might do it on both front wheels, possibly both back wheels if you're sloping down towards the rear, in which case you reverse onto them. And sometimes your whole van is tilting, let's say, to the left, and then you'd put them under both left wheels. So as you drive up these, obviously your passenger needs to be outside, talking to you through the window and indicating when you're about to go off the front of them, so that you don't do that. There is a level inside the cab, so the driver can see roughly when you're level. And the main reason for using these is to make sure the fridge is approximately level, because otherwise it doesn't work very efficiently. To use the awning we'll need these 3 things, which are under the left hand sofa accessed from the back of the van: the cranking handle, the mallet and the pegs. To put the handle into the eye like that and start unwinding the awning. Now what you'll find is that at this end it gets a bit stuck. You can see the material collecting up there, and to release it just push the cranking handle under the lever and it will release down. Carry on winding out the awning until we can reach this front edge. Now we'll take out the legs, so unclip it from here if it hasn't already fallen out, and then at the other end you just need to make sure that this pivot comes out of its housing, then the leg will swing down. Okay, now we're going to undo this wing nut here, which releases the bottom leg. It coming out of the bottom there. Put it on an outward angle, push it up a little bit to support the weight of the awning, and then tighten off the wing nut. Do that on both legs. So now we have both legs on an outward angle supporting the weight of the awning. Now we can carry on winding out the awning until the legs are vertical. And then we take the leg and we reposition them both outwards again. can continue to wind out the awning until the legs are straight. I don't wind it out until these are straight, so you want to maintain a shallow angle on the leg, otherwise it can lock and be difficult to pull back in again. Once the legs are out, you want to bang one peg down using the mallet into the grass to secure the legs. So the awning is designed to be a sunshade. It's not meant to be used in rain, but if it does get wet, don't worry about it, just wind it back in wet, but when you get to where you're going, please wind it back out again so it has a chance to dry off, otherwise it can gather mould. Wind the awning back in again, take out your pegs, position on an inward angle. And then you can start winding in your awning. Once you get to a vertical position, reposition both legs again and keep winding in until you're about 60 or 70 centimetres out from the ground. Okay, so we've wound the awning back in again now. We can start folding the legs and putting it back into the leading edge. Okay, so then undo the wing nut and slide the leg upwards. And when it's fully in, tighten off the wing nut again. Now we can fold the leg upwards, clip it in here and make sure that this pivot is pushed inwards. Repeat for the other leg. Okay, and then we can complete the winding in. Just keep going until it's snug with the van.